This is a 2024 Jeep Wrangler, a new generation of an old school classic that has way more technology than ever before, and a lot of interesting tricks to improve refinement as well, but don't worry, also off-roading capability. And this is definitely not my usual route. This is definitely not my usual state. I am in Utah on a Jeep Wrangler first drive to experience this brand new Wrangler, and very much going to have a bunch of unique experiences. With that said, this will not be my usual video with my usual stuff, but I will work hard to continue to give you as much information as possible. This particular Jeep, the one I'm in right now, is a Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 4xe. That's right, this is a plug-in hybrid Jeep Wrangler, and that is why it is quite quiet right now. You hear wind noise, but no engine noise because the engine isn't running. The 4xe is one of 4 powertrains you can get in the Wrangler for the 2024 model year. The other ones being a turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, a naturally aspirated V6, kind of the old school tried and true motor, this right here, and a 470 horsepower 6.4 liter iron block V8 in the Rubicon 392. By the way, that one's not cheap either. There are also many trims for the new Wrangler. I believe it's 8 in total. I'll go ahead and put the list up on the screen right now for you to see. And between the different powertrains and the different trims, there are quite a few different ways that you can order a Jeep Wrangler. The base price for a Jeep Wrangler is just over $30,000. I'll go ahead and put that up on the screen for you to check out. Prices climb pretty quickly from there, and by the time you're getting in a Rubicon 392, you got to be ready to fork over nearly $90K. All right, with all that, now is a good time to pull over and show you around and inside this car in a bit more detail. Well, here it is, the 2024 Jeep Wrangler. And this one in particular is the Rubicon 4xe. Let's take a closer look. From the front, there are some interesting details to check out right away. First of all, you've got the patented 7-slot vertical grille right here, but it is raised up from before to allow for this new bumper setup with this from the factory winch installed. This is an 8,000 pound winch, and that forced Jeep to raise up the grille a little bit. The winch itself also forced Jeep to have a little bit more bumper in front to have some absorption before you get to this big, heavy, and strong and stiff generator. So you still have bumpers that work the way you expect them to. Of course, you have fantastic approach angles with the Rubicon. You also have built-in fog lights right here. You have your classic round Jeep lenses right there, turn signals and that kind of thing right over here. Attachment points for the hood. Now the hood itself has these nice vents right here, but it also tells you it's a 4xe Rubicon right here. Lots of really cool stuff here. This is your charge port. Of course, it's trail rated 4x4. Of course, it's a Jeep Wrangler. Of course, it's from the United States of America. Look at the massive amounts of ground clearance you have right here. There is my size 12 shoe right there from the floor. It barely gets halfway up between the ground and the floor of the Wrangler. This is still a body on frame car, of course. Look at how high these fenders are to allow a lot of suspension travel from your fully solid axle suspension right here. You have a solid front and solid rear axle, but you have a lot of ways to still get massive amounts of articulation and suspension travel, which is good because you have these all-terrain BF Goodrich KO2 tires to work with, and this great little center cap right there. That's a great little moment. Looking at the car more broadly in profile, it still very much looks like a Jeep Wrangler. Of course, this one is the 4-door, so it's the longer of the two. But look how stretched out the wheelbase is. Look at the minimal overhangs you have in the rear, and then especially in the front. I'll go ahead and put the dimensions up on the screen so you can check those out. And I'll also go ahead and put the approach, breakover, and departure angles of this up on screen. Very appropriate here. And hey, why not? Let's throw on the ground clearance as well. All very appropriate information for this Jeep, especially the Rubicon. From a styling point of view though, I mean, this is very Jeep. You still have these classic removable doors. It's all very flat and square and kind of two-dimensional. Old school key slot right here, though it is a modern door with a modern key fob. And just a lot of the elements that have been with Jeep for so long and are just almost trademarks of what a Jeep really is. Now, yes, this is a plug-in hybrid, not a full BEV, so you do have a fuel door as well, but you have to release it inside the car. Looking at the back, there is your 4xe logo right down here. There is your trailer hitch right down here with your single exhaust pipe, just as it should be. Nothing fancy or inappropriate, just hanging out right down there. Nice high bumpers here, and the spare wheel right on back. But let's take a quick look at storage. It is a side opening door, of course, and that exposes a decent amount of cargo space here. It is only a 2-row ute after all. The glass, once the door is open, just swings up and on those gas struts. So there it is. Pretty decent amount of cargo space, you have to say, though not terribly wide. You have this nice Alpine subwoofer right here and it pretty well built in, but you do have some DC charging right there, some structure to keep you safe because this is a soft top after all. And here is the package for the soft top if you want to remove it all the way. Beneath that, here is your plug and setup for the 4xe. So yeah, pretty interesting mixture of old and new technology that we're looking at in here. But let's check out the back seats. First and foremost, there is a big step to get into the Wrangler. And you have, once you're in, a decent amount of space, but it's not super large back here. I am 5'11" or 181 centimeters tall, and I have knee room, a couple inches worth. I also have pretty darn decent thigh support. The seat bottoms are pretty high, so that means I do, yes, have less than a 90-degree bend in my knees. I do also have headroom. Behind this speaker rack right here, this roof-mounted speaker rack, I have, I'd say, a couple inches of headroom, so it's actually pretty decent, even with this structure here and then the cloth top. You do also have powered seats down here, vents if you need them, several USB ports, and even AC power too. And of course, as long as you don't have 3 passengers back here, you do get an armrest with cup holders. Oh yeah. To the front. Look how high. So there's my knee. My knee is what's bent right there. The knee is basically the floor of this thing. Also, we have these really nice Jeep rubberized floor mats right here. Also, we have powered seats. Now, why is that special? The Jeep can travel into depths of water up to 34 inches, which is above where the seats lie, which means these are power seats that are fully sealed electronics. You can actually adjust the seat while the seat is underwater. So having a powered seat in a Jeep is harder to do than it is in your average car. You do have the pretty typical controls on your door, but it is also on the minimal side. But because it's a hybrid, we have some extra controls to the left of the steering wheel. Hybrid, electric, or e-save are different hybrid driving modes. Hybrid just chooses max efficiency and does lean on being mostly electric when you have enough battery power. Electric says full electric, do not turn on the engine unless you absolutely have to. And then e-save is largely depend on the internal combustion engine, save the battery pack for another time. And within e-save, there are 2 different levels, and you do that in the center console touchscreen, which I'll show you in just a sec. You do have steering adjustment, both tilt and telescope. It is manually done right there. You also have a small screen in between your 2 analog gauges for RPM and for charge and power status and all this kind of stuff. Speedometer is electrically done right in the center. You do also have a 12.3-inch very widescreen center console touchscreen, which has a whole lot of information in it. You also have applications for opening and closing the removable roof and a pretty standard rearview mirror right there. But beneath that, you do have heated steering wheel, heated seats, and a max regen button. You can turn on and off max regen. That basically gets you between pretty close to nothing when you lift off the throttle to what I would say is a good tenth and a half a G of deceleration. You have a lot more controls here that are like general climate controls and different sets like that. But beneath that, this is actually where your power windows are. You have another 12-volt power source right there and a whole bunch more media controls right there. But this is where it starts getting more, I don't know, Jeepy. Front and rear diff lockers, off-road plus driving mode, sway bars, auxiliary controls right down here, and this big beefy lever to choose between 2 high, 4 automatic, 4 high, and going all the way down to 4 low, which does of course require you to put it in neutral. This does have the automatic transmission, of course. Beneath that, you do have a couple of cup holders, and past that, you even have center console with a bit of storage, and it goes deeper than that if you wish. And yes, another USB port as well. I do also like this very flat, squared off dash to couple with the center console touchscreen. I think this blue stitch work is a nice touch, and I think these seats are actually pretty comfortable as well. We do have a push button start right here, and the car is now running, and you're probably going to hear the climate control come on and get pretty loud because it's quite warm in here at the time. Here is the steering wheel. It is a decently fat rim, got a nice Jeep badge right here, controls for the screens right here, phone controls, and this is really interesting. You have, I'm just going to keep talking loudly because I enjoy the air. You have the choice between standard cruise control right here and adaptive cruise control right here. If you hit this one, you get standard cruise control, and you have to play with distance yourself, or get to, as I might say, or adaptive cruise control, and then there's your distance control right there. I think that's a really neat touch. The navigation screen itself does accept wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. You do also have a lot of controls and navigation and all that kind of stuff. But one thing in vehicle is what I really want to show you. Mirror dimmer, forward-facing camera, sure. Rear-facing camera, nice. But up here, look at these controls right here. E-hybrid, e-save. So I showed you the e-save button right here. When you're in e-save, you can choose between battery save, just maintaining the battery level you have, or battery charge. It'll actually charge the battery as you're driving along in e-save. I think that's a really nice touch. And I think there's a lot of really interesting things about this car just in general in terms of all this different technology that you have to look at. So there's your speedometer right there, but you also have all this vehicle information, off-road information, driver assist information, but you also still have a body-on-frame, solid rear axle suspension, very old school off-road capable vehicle here. It's a plug-in hybrid with plug-in hybrid type things, but it's still very much a Jeep. And there's a lot of interesting things about the drive as a result, and I really want to get back to the drive, so let's do that now. All right, let's dig into the powertrain. As I mentioned, there are 4 different powertrains. The naturally aspirated V6, the Pentastar V6, that makes 285 horsepower, 265 pound-feet of torque. Then you have the turbocharged 4-cylinder, that makes 275 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. Then you have this plug-in hybrid powertrain right here that has a nice big battery pack to go with a turbocharged 4-cylinder and 2 electric motors to help everything along. That's what I'm driving right now, and it, generally speaking, works really well. And then finally, you have a big old naturally aspirated 6.4 liter V8 in the Rubicon 392. That one in particular has 470 horsepower, and I believe the same 470 pound-feet of torque as well. It is not slow. But let's talk about this plug-in hybrid just a little bit more. So you get 21 miles of range of EV-only driving range if you were just to use the battery pack. You also get pretty darn healthy amounts of horsepower. 375 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque. Electric motors do torque really, really well, and there is no exception here. You also get 49 miles to the gallon equivalent. So if you're dubious about using your EV motor and you recharge on a regular basis, this is actually quite economical, despite all the natural things that would make it inherently worse for fuel economy. lots of air to push out of way. This does not have a low coefficient of drag, and higher rolling resistant tires, etc., etc., etc. This is also not the lightest thing in the world, is it? So to be able to achieve that level of fuel economy, despite all the natural hurdles that this has to overcome in terms of fuel economy, that's pretty darn impressive. And in the first moment you get in this car, it does seem a little weird to say Jeep Wrangler and plug-in hybrid, but, you know, very quickly, very naturally, it feels pretty normal. It feels pretty comfortable. I think that the new technology is integrated into what a classic Jeep is really well. And again, electric motor torque is really powerful, not in just the sheer numbers that it provides, but also in the fact that it provides peak torque at essentially 0 RPM and gives a response that is imperceptible. It's basically instantaneous response. So those things combine really naturally and really well with something with a lot of off-roading prowess. And another thing about it is it does give the driver options to use. So you have choices in when you want to use it as an EV, when you want to use it as an ICE engine or a gas-powered vehicle, and when you want it to be a hybrid. We do also have 2 different levels of off-throttle battery regeneration. So you have the standard, which is not much. It's not much more than coasting, but you also have max regen. So it's off right now. And if I lift off the throttle right now, it's basically coasting, maybe just the tiniest touch more than coasting. But now I'm going to turn max regen on and lift off the throttle again. And that's a good 10th, maybe 10th and a half a G of deceleration. You can see we're losing a lot more speed generally that way. Now, this is a hybrid system that has, you know, the integration of the brakes and all that. So you're still going to get some recharging benefits, even if you're not in the max regen mode. But if you like that feeling of deceleration when you lift off the throttle with a touch of a button, it's off right now, turning it on, all of a sudden I have deceleration, even though I'm going downhill. But another part of this being a hybrid, 470 pound-feet of torque, yeah, means good acceleration. Of course I had to test it. Let me show you that right now. All right, everybody, time for an acceleration test. I do have the 4xe in hybrid mode. I also have the 4-wheel drive system in 4-high auto. And I also have a lot of battery life left and some electric torque to play with. So let's see how it goes. By the way, in this part of Utah, it's harder to find a straight and flat piece of road than it is in Michigan. But we found one. All right, pulling out onto the road, coming to a complete stop. Bit of brake torque, about 2,000 RPM off the brake. That was a nice little jump from the front of the car. And wow, look at that's good acceleration from this Jeep. That is a lot faster than I expected. Wow, Jeep says 0 to 60 in less than 6 seconds, and man, I have to believe them. And I have to say that was awfully entertaining to be able to get that nice lurch off the line and then have the front incline for grip, and then off we go. Good acceleration from the Jeep Wrangler 4xe. Woo, fun. This is a Jeep test. This is a Jeep test that Jeep is putting on in Utah. Of course, this is not going to be just on road. Of course I went off-road. Let me show you that right now. Okay, I am just starting to move now. I am going on an off-road trail in the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon, but not the same Jeep Wrangler Rubicon that I was driving on the road. This one, this one is a 392. Makes slightly different noises. I am in the 4-low driving mode now. I'm also in the off-road plus driving mode, and I also have the sway bar disconnected. So we're pretty well set up to do some pretty legitimate off-roading. I do want to quickly show you that this is a standard stock Jeep, but as you can see, the tire pressures are deflated. Also, I've got this cool screen right here, which will show me pitch and roll of the vehicle as we go through the trail. Okay, first obstacle, and I'm gonna go ahead and put the front camera on. This is what the front camera shows me versus what my windshield camera shows me. Now I'll tell you what I can see right now. I can basically see this guy's fingers and sky, but he seems to be, it's just straight up. Okay, and here we go. All right, now I'm on the ledge. Okay, that's a little stressful, but it's okay. It's getting wider. It is getting wider. It is getting wider. Woo, boy. Okay, obstacle number 2. Another big rock. There it goes. Okay, all right. We made it to the top. Now we got to go back down without breaking anything. Ah, what the world? Why? What? Just walk these kinds of things. I feel like I'm going straight down a cliff. This is insane. Why? All right, obstacle number 2, done. Man, yeah, whew, plenty capable, this Jeep. And there is this guy. There is this guy. Okay, yep, pretty short, but woo, steep for a moment there. And then what goes up must come down, and it looks like we're going to properly articulate the suspension here. Okay, all right, he's nodding his head yes. Okay, this, I don't know why people do this to their cars. Okay, now the rear is coming up, so we're sharply headed down. Okay, oh. All right, I think, okay. Woo, boy. All right, we've now got a steep off-camber rock to climb, and apparently this is safe. This is proving that Jeeps are plenty capable, and you know, it hasn't even felt that difficult, but it is tense. It is definitely tense. Hi, Sky. How are you, Sky? I mean, relatively, you feel like you've got decent grip, but you're off camber, and still kind of prefer a pair of hiking boots. All right, now we got to go down a very lumpy slope, but it doesn't look too terribly treacherous, just looks narrow. Yeah, this is very narrow. I have lots of horsepower, and I am not to use any of it. Horsepower would not help at this point. Gravity is my horsepower, and the less I apply, probably the better I am. And then it's just loose sand after this. And yep, okay, and yeah, and I'm down. All right, to the fairly level, nice and soft sand. Jeep is still in one piece. Robin is still in one piece. And whew, yeah, that was a trip, that one. All right, let's talk about the ride of this Jeep Wrangler. So from a pure ride comfort point of view, it's perfectly pleasant. You've got a lot of tire sidewall to work with, and it's comfortable enough. From a driving point of view on roads, it's not great. The steering is very vague. You've got a lot of body lean going through corners. Even as I'm driving slowly through this gorgeous park in Utah right now, you can still feel body lean and things like that in the corners. The steering is awfully vague. You don't have any feel on center, and there's a lot of play in the steering. It is perfectly safe. There is nothing unsafe about the way it drives at all. It's just not something that feels good to drive on the road. And when the going gets a little faster, noise levels go up pretty darn high. This is a soft top roof, don't forget. A removable roof, it's great if you want the sun, you want some open air, but not great for wind noise. And that's true when you're going slower like this, but it's much more true when you're on the interstate. Yes, I did get a chance to drive it there. Let me show you that. All right, time for a quick stint on the interstate, see how this Rubicon feels, and get a sense of what it's like when you're not doing some epic off-road trail. All right, cruise control is set at 70 miles an hour to go with traffic. At that speed, the engine is running and spinning about 2,000 RPM, and it is very much out of the way in terms of noise. It might be making some noise, but it is very much overpowered by the large amounts of wind noise you're getting. This is a Jeep Wrangler. It is very squared off. Lots of set angles and straight, blunt objects for the wind to push around. This windshield is completely flat, doesn't have any kind of curve to it. You have to step up and into this car, so a lot of air goes under the car, and it's very messy down there. There's a big flat blunt grill, and then it has to push over to this windshield, and then we have a cloth roof on top of that. And road noise as well is a little bit elevated compared to standard, not as much as the wind noise, but we do have BF Goodrich KO2 tires, a little bit louder than a mud and snow. And we are also rolling on solid rear axles, both front and rear, so it's not the most refined ride. It's not harsh at all. We have a lot of sidewall to work with, and it absorbs bumps and lumps in the road just fine. It's just kind of wobbly and undulating a little bit more than an independent suspension would do. One thing about this Jeep that I do quite like is right on the steering wheel, you can choose between adaptive and standard cruise control, and this big 12.3-inch center console touchscreen is quite easy to read, as is the smaller screen in between the two analog gauges here. It's just noisy in here. And I think everyone would pretty much expect that. No real surprises here. Kind of comes with the territory of going with a Wrangler, especially a Rubicon, especially a soft top, but certainly for a pure road trip, not your first choice. Can you tow with a Jeep Wrangler? Yes, you can. In fact, you can tow, if properly equipped, up to 5,000 pounds, which is a respectable number. But only some Jeeps can tow that. Depending on how it's equipped, it's gonna be 5,000 pounds or 3,500 pounds. Again, really, when you consider what the purpose of this car is, that's really not that bad. This is not meant to be a tow vehicle, so the fact that it can double as a decent tow vehicle is a nice bonus. So, what do we think of this Jeep Wrangler, this 2024 Jeep Wrangler? Everyone, breathe a sigh of relief. This is still a Jeep as you understand Jeeps to be. It is body on frame, solid axle, tough, off-roady, adventurous thing. Don't get me wrong, Jeep added a lot of technology to the Wrangler, but they did so very carefully to make sure that they did not interrupt any of the core things that make a Jeep, but complement those things. So yes, we do have more refinement. We do have larger screens, and those screens are more capable than before. But those screens are also put to use to make off-roading easier. Off-roading easier to find and easier to navigate. And when you get to the more difficult obstacles, you also have things to make it easier to see where you're going, the front cameras and things like that. So the refinements that Jeep made this a more comfortable Jeep, made this a Jeep that can survive in the 21st century, but definitely still made it the Jeep that everyone knows and loves. I'm Robin Warner, thank you for watching. And if you like this video, please let me know by giving it a thumbs up. Doing so helps me out a lot, and I'd really appreciate it. Also, there are other ways to go pretty extreme off-roading. One I got to try recently is the GMC Canyon AT4X. We had a pretty nice adventure out in the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, and you should definitely check that out. And from there, I reviewed a whole bunch of cars by now. Something's gonna pop up on the screen next to me. Hopefully it's something you're interested in, and if you do end up watching it, I definitely hope you like it. Okay, goodbye for now. All right, time for a quick stint on the internet. All right, time for a quick stint on the interstate.